Good morning, YouTube. I am Bearded Ink, and today we have another tutorial for you on Discord covering the permissions and the minefield that these permissions can be. I know that they're very confusing, and we're going to cover them in detail so that you can get the most out of the permissions and use them wisely without disrupting your server. We're going to get right into it. So, we're just going to use my Bearded Pint Discord server here for this tutorial. If you're not already in the server, feel free to join. Links in the description below. But what we're going to do basically is we're going to cover the areas where permissions are stored. And there are three areas where you have to deal with permissions, which is where part of the confusion comes in. So basically, you have role permissions, which you give to each user based on their roles. You have category permissions, which control the permissions of all the channels within that category. And then you have specific channel permissions within a category. And it can get kind of confusing, but we're going to take you through it. We're going to go through all of the permissions and kind of what they mean. We'll cover that as quickly as possible, but I do want to be thorough so that you understand what the permissions are. And then we're going to go ahead and show you how best to set them up on your server so that you can make the most out of the permissions. And then, of course, at the end, we will then show you how to check to ensure that the permissions are working the way that you want them to before you actually apply them to your users. All right. So the first thing that we want to do in Discord is you're going to go up to the very top where your server name is, and there's a little down arrow, and we're going to go to server settings. Okay. And then in here, you have all of your server setting headings. We just want to go to roles. Okay. Now, when you have your roles, you're going to see this stuff over here. It's going to have all of the roles that you have in your server, which may or may not be as many as I do. Some of them are just for uh clout, I guess, kind of like the where they're from, what game system they play on, things like that, whether male, female, they, them, and stuff. So these are like the ones that are we added in the previous tutorial with Carlbot, and they don't really have any permissions. They just give them a category and stuff like that. So what we want to do is by default there is the at everyone, and everybody in your server is going to have this role. You can't get rid of it. It's just the way it is. And these are the default permissions. So as you can see here, it says applies to all server members. So if you click on this, then you're going to see here on the left, you have all of your permission or all of your roles again, excuse me, and you can actually drag and drop them to reorder them. So this role tree acts like a hierarchy. So the higher it is on the list, the more permissions that it will have over or control permissions over the ones below it. So you want to make sure like your admin and things like that are near the top. I have the bots here that we have on the Bearded Pint Discord over the pub owner, which is me, and then my barkeeps, which are like my moderators for the stuff, because these do change roles. They do add and remove roles, and they need the permissions to do that. So, for example, Carlbot here, when somebody on my server goes live, if they have their Twitch or YouTube connected to their account, it'll give them the live now role, and they'll show up in the member list in a separate area. So, for example, I have the Carlbot here who will grant permissions based on activity. So, for example, like he will give the live now role to anybody that has their Twitch or YouTube account connected to the Discord when they go live, and they'll show up on the member list in a little separate area. But I have my account linked, right? So if I want Carlbot to be able to give me that role, he has to be higher than that. That role, which I have, which is pub owner. So Carlbot has to be above that to be able to give permission. So, for example, if I were to bring Carlbot down below here, he wouldn't be able to give me the live now permission. So then that would never change for my username on the server list or on the member list. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that this hierarchy here will be top to bottom. Okay. So let's walk you through. I'm just going to create a new role. This is going to be a test role. And we're just going to click on create because this is going to take you through. So up at the top, you'll see we have display, permissions, links, manage members, all this. So the display actually has a couple of permissions that you need to know about. And the first one here is display the role members separately from online members. So if you check this box and you click on the little save change, what this does is when somebody is assigned this role, and we'll just go back to the server, you can see here how I have like here are my patrons. This is everybody that doesn't have a specified role active. So they're all in one group. Okay. And then I have my support family here for those of you that have become a member on Ko-Fi. And then I have different categories based on how much you have posted. So like we have the beer drinkers and they're all separated from the online list. Here's that live now that we were just talking about and see how they're separated and so on and so forth. So if we go back here and we go back to roles, let's go to our testing role here. So this role here, we say display role members separately. So if anybody is in this group, they will be separated from that long list of just who's online. You don't want this for every role, obviously. You want roles to stick out. So that's where you would display them separately, just so they have like a little bit of extra clout there. And then the allow anyone to mention this role. So if you check this, and I do not recommend that, but if you check this, that means anybody in your server can do the @ symbol and then type that role name. In this case, it would be new role, and it would ping anybody that has that role. And normally you want your pings left to the admins and your like moderators and stuff and not everybody. So this should normally stay unchecked. Okay, so let's go to the main permissions, and we are going to cover all of these. So it is going to be a little bit lengthy because there are a lot of permissions, but we only have to do it once. But I want to make sure that you understand what the permissions are so that when we're looking at them in the other categories, you'll know. Okay, and these are going to be default. So you want to set these per role. So you have to go through each one of your roles that need permissions. Okay, and let me preface that again. So if we look over here again, we have like all of these that were given by Bot. You will see that they don't have any roles. They don't do anything special for that person. So you only need to adjust the role permissions on roles that you want them to be able to have specific things other than nothing, right? Because all new roles start with nothing enabled. So the view channels, this allows you to see the channel list on the left-hand side. So if you want this role to be able to see all of the channels, you're going to turn this one on. And this is all you have to do. If you want them to have the permission, turn it on so it's green. When you're done, you click Save Changes at the bottom. And then every time you make a change, this will pop back up. You don't have to save after every change. You can wait until you make all of your changes and then click Save one time, okay? So let's go back here now, the manage channels. So what manage channels does, this is a more of an admin role. This will allow people to make new channels in your server. They can edit existing channels or they can even delete channels. So this is kind of a powerful role permission here, and you don't want to give this to just everybody. So again, admins and moderators probably only. Same thing with the manage roles. So this will allow people to come into your roles section and rename, change the colors, all that kind of thing. And it even allows them to change the permissions. So you don't want to check that one unless it's absolutely needed. The create expressions will allow people to add custom emojis or stickers and even sounds to your server. If you're on Nitro, you have more slots available, for these kind of things, and you can allow certain people with this role to add to that list if you want them to. And then you have the manage expressions, which again, the stickers and emojis and all that they can create, they can also remove them if you give them this permission. The view audit log, view server insights, these two together, again, are more admin stuff. So it just basically, the audit log is a log over here in the moderation that will show you any changes that were made. So when somebody changes a role, when somebody does anything in the settings here, it keeps a log of it and it'll show you who did that change. This will allow them to see the log. And then this one, if you are on a community server, you have server insights, and this will allow them to see those insights. So again, not every role needs these, moderators, admins only. The manage webhooks and manage server, kind of what they talk about. If you have webhooks on your server, this will allow the members with this permission to create, edit, and or delete those webhooks. And then the same thing with the server, they can change the server's name, they can switch regions, they can view and edit your invites, they can add applications. It's pretty much like an auto mod or an admin type of permission. So you want to be very careful with those. So under here, we have the membership permissions now. All right, so you have the create an invite. This one is a pretty good one for most of the, like your lower end but high roles. So for example, we have everybody gets a role of ID check when they first join the server, and they have to then accept the rules. And once they accept the rules, they are given up here the patrons role, because my whole Discord server is tavern themed, right? So they come in the door basically, and they're given the ID check. And this has no permissions at all. The only thing that this ID check role can see is the rules post and a couple of other channels, but they can't interact with them other than giving a reaction. And then once they react to the rules, this role is removed from them and they are given the patrons role. And then the patrons are allowed to create an invite, because you want people to invite their friends and stuff to your server. And this checkbox allows them to do that. They can create an invite for specific channels to bring other people into your server. The change nickname allows them to change their nickname on your server. So it's how they appear on your server. And this is a good one to have because people like to have different identities based on what server they're in. It does not change their username. So if you still go and click in their profile, you can still see their actual username to help, bypass people trying to do nefarious things under somebody else's name or whatever. But people do like to change their nicknames, so this is a good one to have. Right below that, we have manage nicknames, and this one allows them to change or edit the nicknames of other members. I don't know why these type of things are there other than for like admin purposes, but there you go. If you want to have your members change the nicknames of other members, then you can select this. And this allows that change to be server wide. So it's not just for that user. This would change the nickname for everybody to see. Kick, approve, and reject members, pretty self-explanatory. If you give them this one, they have admin permissions to kick people or reject new members coming in, asking permission to join the server. And ban members, again, admin or moderator type only action here. They can ban a member or even time out a member. So now we're going to go down to the text channel permissions, okay? And this is where more of your toggles are going to be turned on. So send messages. This will allow people to actually send a message in all of the channels. And so if you want to turn this on so that they can actually participate in your server. If you have threads enabled, the send messages in threads, this will allow members to reply to those threads. You can have them create a public thread if you turn this one on, or they can create a private thread if you turn this one on. Again, I'm not real big on private threads. I want everybody to be able to see everything as long as they have the right permissions to do so. But if that's something that you want in your server, maybe you have a reason for that, that's where you would toggle that on. The embed links, this allows members to actually like type in a link in the messages and it will have the little embed image and all that and shows the context of what the link goes to. And then attach files. This is a good one to have if you want people to be able to upload things such as media or documents or screenshots and things like that to your server. This also includes images, so make sure that you have that enabled so that people can add their pictures. Adding reactions. So reactions are the little emotes that come under a message where you can click and it keeps a count of how many people have clicked on them. if you allow them to add reactions, right, then what they can do is there will be existing reactions there, but they can add other ones to it. So this is a good one to let people express themselves through those reactions. Um, and using external emojis, stickers, and sounds, these three here will allow you to have your members be able to use emojis, stickers, and sounds from other servers that they are members of. It'll allow them to bring those into your server to use in their posts or their reactions. It doesn't actually add these emojis, stickers, or sounds to your server. It just allows your server to show them. Uh, I always tend to check these on too as well, because more interaction is always better, right? And somebody may have like a favorite emote that they like to use, and if it's not in your server, this will allow them to use it. So the mention everyone here and all roles, if you turn this on, which is again not recommended, it will allow them to mention these roles, and anybody that has these roles, and of course everyone in your server has the everyone role. The here role is another automatic role by Discord, and it pings everybody that is currently in your server and online. And all roles would be all of the roles that you have created. They can actually do the @ symbol and then that role name. And anybody that has those roles will get a ping alert. So this is very careful, can be very detrimental. So I suggest you leave that one off. Moving on, we have the manage messages, manage threads. These two, again, with anything with manage on it, is going to give them the permission to edit, delete, add, that kind of thing. So here with the messages and the threads, you can see that that will allow them to delete messages by other members or pin any message. And the threads, the same thing. They can rename, delete, close, and turn on slow mode for threads. And they can also view private threads. So be very careful with these two. This again is anything with manage should be left to moderators, admins, or owners of your server. The read message history. This one is very important, and I don't know why this is even a thing. But basically, what this means is if I have a post, say, for example, my rules, which were posted a couple of years ago, and somebody joins the server today and they don't have the read message history on, they won't be able to see it because it will only allow them to see messages that have been posted since they've joined your server. Um, it does not fully apply to threads or forum posts. So forum posts, if you're on a community server, but they can still see some of those. Excuse me. They can still see some of those, but not all of them. So be careful with leaving this one off. Most roles, at least like your main primary role that you give to all of your members, should have this one enabled. The send text to speech messages. Discord has a feature where you can do text to speech, maybe for hearing impaired or visually impaired people. And this is a good one to have. They do the /TTS, and basically anyone that is focused on that channel, it will autoplay. So it's kind of a hit or miss in whether or not you really need it. It can be very annoying for people that don't want to hear the messages. So be very careful with this. And this would be something which we will talk about in a future here about doing like a specific channel permission. Okay. Sending voice messages. This one allows them to basically record audio through their microphone instead of typing a message, and then it will have the thing up, and then people can click on play to hear the message. And then the create polls obviously allows members to create polls. So if you want to have a poll thing, channel or whatever in your server, this will allow other users other than moderators and admins to create a poll in that channel. And then you have your voice channel permissions. So these are all of your VC channels. You should allow people to connect to a VC. You should allow them to speak inside a VC, and then show their video. So the video one will allow them to share their screen or stream a game, that kind of thing, which most voice channels do have that permission on. But if for whatever reason you only want it to be audio only, no video, no webcams, no shared screens, toggle this one off. Using the soundboard, for those of you who may not know, when you are in a VC, there is a little soundboard where you can add like 5-second clips of sounds, and they can click a button and it'll play that sound as if they were speaking through their microphone, so everybody in the VC can hear it. Sometimes they can get kind of funny, but it's kind of fun to use, and the soundboard is controlled by you, so what sounds are actually added to it. So having this enabled will allow people in your VC to use the actual soundboard that you have spent so much time creating. Using external sounds, so this is like the soundboard and like the emotes and stuff from above. If there are members of other servers and those servers have soundboards, the using external sounds will allow them to be in a VC in your server and click on the button for the soundboard for other servers to play those sounds. Using the voice activity, this allows members to speak in just by simply speaking. So if you have this turned off, they are required to use push to talk. So if you have noisy members or whatever, or they have a lot of background noise or their connections are real crappy, you don't want all of that background noise constantly, especially if you're streaming and like doing a collab with whatever with somebody. You can leave this off and it will require anybody in that VC to use push to talk to actually be heard. But otherwise, you want to leave this on so they can just join and start talking right away. Um, the priority speaker, I normally leave this one off, but basically what this means is when somebody has this permission, so if they have this role and you turn this on, they become a priority speaker. So if they're in a VC with, say, 5 other people and those people do not have the priority speaker role, when this person speaks, all other volume coming into that VC will be lowered, and so that their voice is louder than everything else. I don't like to use that, but it is a good thing to have. Maybe like for your moderators or whatever, if you have like a busy community night and they need to be heard because something's going on, and you need to tell people to pay attention to something and they're just talking, you can give your moderators the priority speaker. It will kind of tampen down or almost mute the other users there so that they can be heard. And then the mute members, this allows other members to mute other members. And I do recommend that you turn this on because sometimes you might be in an open VC and just hanging out, and there may be somebody coming in that is just disruptive or whatever. And this will allow them to mute them so they don't have to hear it. Deafen members, this will allow you to deafen other members in the voice channel, which means they won't be able to speak or hear. So mute only prevents them from being heard when they speak into their microphone. Deafen prevents them from speaking in their microphone or hearing in their headset or speakers. So you want to be careful with these two when you're given too much power. I usually leave these off because there are volume controls that every member has, and they can slide the volume down to 0 instead of muting them, because people will mute somebody on accident and not know it, and then nobody wonders why fucking Craig can't be heard anymore. Moving members, this one should be again left to admins or moderators. Basically what this means though is if you have like a private voice channel that only you want certain people to be able to join. Maybe you're doing like a live collab and you only want people that are actually playing the game to join that VC. What they can do then is you can have them join any other VC that they can join. And then this move members, if you toggle that on, anybody can grab their name and drag them into that private VC and they will automatically join it that way. So this is good, again, for like collabs or for private VCs where you only want specific people to be able to come in, have them join another one, drag their name down, and then they're in that VC with you. And then set the voice channel status. So on the voice channel itself, when you look at it, it'll say the name, whatever you've given the name of that VC. And right underneath it is like a little status thing. And you can actually change that to describe what's going on, or hey, it's movie night, we're now showing whatever movie, things like that. If you check this box, anybody with that role will be able to edit or delete or change that status on there. It doesn't really do anything other than be informative, but you do want to be careful because people can be kind of naughty with that, right? And then app permissions here, the application commands. This allows commands from applications. So like your bots are considered applications. Anything that you add and you have to give permissions to join the server, such as like CarlBot, MeBot, any of these, like the sound or the song ones, video playing ones, game bots and things like that, they will all have their own commands that come with them. And usually those are like the exclamation point commands or the / commands. If you check this box, anybody with that role will be able to use those commands. So if you have like the birthday bot, you want that people to be able to add their birthdays, they have to use the birthday bot's commands. This enables them to be able to use that. Same thing with activities and external apps. The external apps ones I would be careful with because just like everything else, when you're using external, it doesn't have to be installed on your server for people to use it. So this is kind of a backwards way that some nefarious people can have things active on your server when you haven't actually installed them. The activities is good. This is like when you're in a VC and you can play games together. So that one's good for people in interaction. The request to speak. This is where the stage thing, which is a community feature on Discord, and basically it's like you go on stage. And people can come in and join. They can't really talk, they can only listen. This request to speak will allow people that are um, in the audience to be able to be heard through their microphone in that stage channel. And this one, it's just a request. It's not automatically given. And then your moderators for that stage at that time, when you're running the stage moderators can approve or disapprove that. So if you don't have a community server, you won't have this option. Don't worry about it. If you do have a community server and you're not running stages, don't worry about it. Leave it off. Okay. And then we have the last three. So the event permissions. So events are things that you alert people to. They have a countdown, reminders are sent, pings are sent, things like that. This will allow people that are not admin or moderators to create events and then again manage. They can edit and even cancel events, even if you're the one that created them. So these you need to be very careful with as well. And then finally, the last one on the list is the administrator. And if you toggle all of the other ones off and toggle this administrator one on, it will give them every permission that there is. So this is something you want to give, like, because you are the owner of your server, but you can have an admin or an administrator on your server and basically act as you. Um, they have pretty much the same permissions that a owner does. So it's got to be somebody that you really trust. And this will give them all of the same type of permissions. And it bypasses all channel and category restrictions. So this will have access to all of the private channels and everything again. So you don't want to give this to everybody. You just want to give it to those that are worthy of your trust, basically, or that so even like your channel moderators and stuff, you don't want to give them admin privileges. You want to give them their permissions to do and manage without being an admin. But this is a quick and easy way to make a single role and give one or two people the power of the server owner without having to go through every single one. So you just scroll down to the bottom and check that on, and then that person has those permissions. And then again, when you're all done with your settings, you click save. Now, this is for the roles permissions, right? And all of the permissions are exactly the same, but just based on the roles. So you have to go through your roles and think, do I want this person to have certain permissions that other ones don't have? So for example, my beer drinkers, Scotch sippers, and barflies, these are just based on how often the person chats. So if they're very, very chatty, it's kind of like a level system. So these don't have any more permissions over the patrons. They just are set to display separately. from the roles. That's basically the only perk they get. And it's just kind of a hierarchy. So the barflies will be above the scotch sippers, who are above the beer drinkers, who are always above the patrons. And so you can do the same thing in your server, but they don't have any permissions, right? But then I have my cocktail servers, which are basically my moderators, right? And these have the mod permissions. And then I have my barkeep, which is basically my one trusted person who will go in and act as me or the owner, and they can do anything in the server that I can do. And this is the one that has the admin permissions set to it. Okay. So now that you've done and gone through all of your server roles and given them all their permissions and you've saved everything, now we have to go back and we have to come into here, into your server, and we have two new places to look. So we have our categories here. So for example, I have the pub menu category, I have the bar top category. The category itself has permissions, and these control the permissions within each of the channels in that category. So you're going to right click on here and we're going to go to edit category. And then you're going to come up to this page, and then you see here is the permissions. And so if you click on the permissions, you're going to get this page. So the first thing at the top is to make the category private. So if you click on this and you turn this on, it will basically mean that nobody can see this category or the channels in that category unless they have the permissions to do so, which by default, nobody except for admins and server owners will have that permission. So for example, let's clear out real quick. I have my moderation roles down here where I have my office set up. So this is where my staff can chat. So my moderators and my admins, and then all of my mod alerts will come in. This will let me know when like people go live, when they change their profile pictures, when they edit or delete a post or things like that. They get, we talked about this in the BeardedInk video. This is where everything like that gets posted. So we can go in here and you can just kind of see. So it's when roles have changed or when their avatars have changed, anything that happens in the server as kind of gets logged here. I don't want this to clutter up my server. So I have a specific channel that nobody can see except for me and my moderators. Okay, but let's go back up here and we're going to go back into the permissions again. Edit category, permissions. So the private category is great if you want it to be specifically for a specific person or a specific role group to only be able to visibly see that channel. If they don't have their permissions, it won't even show up on the channel list on the left there. All right, and then we have the big thing. So down here under advanced permissions, which is usually closed like this, you're going to click on it to open it up. And then by default, the everyone role is here. Okay. And so what happens here is this is going to give overrides to the permissions of that role for this category. All right. So basically, if you remember the everyone role, they don't have a whole lot of permissions, right? But if I want them to be able to do something or not do something in this category, this is where I can override the role permissions. So if I have a role, like we made that test role, so I can come in here and I can do test, new role. It was called new role. So I can come in here with a new role. Remember, we didn't give them a whole lot of permissions, right? They had the view channel, view message history, right? And they could change their nickname or whatever. So let's say, for example, I want this category, I want this role here to have more permissions. Then we're going to come over here and you'll see here's the list of all the permissions we just covered. And next to them all is a red X, a /, and a green check mark. Okay, and what these are your override controls. So we have the new role able to view channels. That is it. So if we leave this on the gray /, this means it will take whatever permission is given to that role for this permission specifically. So the new role has the ability to view channels. So if we leave it here, they can still view the channel. However, if I click the red X, that means this role cannot view the channels in this category, even though their permission says they can, right? And then again, if we have it to where it's set where they can't, so if I have the new role says can't view channels, I can come in here and say, but they can view the channels in this category, right? So you can override the can or cannot on a category level. And again, the middle / just means it will obey whatever role permissions are set for that thing. All right. So you want to go through here. This is a good thing to have. So, for example, we have our menu, the server rules, right? This is the one that everybody has to react to. They have to click this little button to even see the rest of the server here, right? So maybe I don't want them to see everything. So I have by default that role doesn't see anything in the server. But if they can't see the rules, they won't be able to react to them to open up the rest of the server so that they get the role so they can see it. So then I would come into here and I would go to my category and I would go to permissions and I would add their role here. And you just click this little plus button to add any new role you want. All of your roles will show up here and specific members. So you can do it by member as well. But this role, the new role, we want them to be able to see this channel, right? Because they need to be able to react to it. So we want to make sure that they can also react to messages. So we would come down here to the reactions and click on that. And then we would save the changes here. And so now, even though they can't see anything else in the server, they can now see this entire category. They can see the channels and they can add reactions, which is what we want them to be able to do. So again, you can take your roles if you have like say I have my 18 plus, right? So I have a role where people can say they're under 18 or they're over 18. And if they're over 18, maybe they can then see this channel. And only those that have this role can see this channel. So like an adults only type of channel or something where, you may use, foul language or, lewd suggestions and jokes and memes and things like that, that you don't want the younger audience in your server to be able to have access to. This is how you would override that so that if they have the 18 plus role, they can then come through and do whatever they need to do in this server or in this category, right? And then, of course, you would save the changes there and go about your day. Okay, so that's for the categories, right? So you're going to go through every category and set your default permissions for that. So again, we have already set all of the role permissions. Now we've set all of the category permissions. But let's say, for example, I have certain channels in a specific category that needs to have different permissions. So I have a couple of them here. So again, in my pub menu, this is my basic where the rules are. This is where you go to get your roles. The welcome message here. So anytime anybody joins the server, and then it allows people to, say hi or chat or whatever. And then I have my announcements, right? And so some of these, I don't want people to be able to respond to or react to, or just it's basically information like the announcements. I want people to be able to read the announcements, but I don't want them to be able to comment, right? So what I would do is I would come in here and I can right click and I can go edit channel this time. And then again, there's a permissions. When we click on permissions, and you can make this channel, just this channel, private, or we can come in here. So again, here is my everyone role. Everyone can view it, right? But then look at this. I've set it where they can't send a message. They can't send messages in threads. No public thread creation, no private thread creation. They can't embed links. They can't attach files. They can add a reaction, right? And then everything else is default to way the everyone role is, which basically says they can't do this stuff anyway. So now for this channel only, they won't be able to send a message, right? And again, your admin roles and server owner, these permissions do not apply to them. So anybody that has those permissions will still be able to send messages, to send a reaction, things like that. But the general member in your server won't be able to. Okay. And so you can have that. And again, if we look down even further, here's my bar top. This is like your general chat area. So we have our general chat. This is where we can post pictures of our pets, our food, show memes, show pictures of ourselves in the selfie center. But then you see I have adult humor here, and it's got this little warning sign. It's age restricted. That's what that tag means. So it means that they have to agree in the roles that they are over 18. So here, are you over 18? Yes or no? If they've said yes, that's on them, to be honest, right? And it protects me because I've said, I can say, hey, yeah, this person said that they were over 18. So now I can come into my adult humor and I can edit the channel and I can go to permissions and then I can go through and I can add all of my roles that I need to. And here you see under 18, they can't even see the channel. So if they've clicked that they are under 18 on my server roles, they have the 18 minus role automatically given to them. They will not even see this channel exists. If they are 18 and they've clicked that and they got the 18 or over role, then they will be able to see this channel. All the other permissions are set to the default, whatever is permitted by that role. So you want to go through and make sure that you have those set up correctly. And then you'll see here again at the very top, permissions are not synced with the category. That's because we're overriding the category rules or permissions with specific channel permissions. So I don't want them to be synced. However, if I do create a new channel or I have a channel and I decide, you know what, I want this adult humor one to be in, I have created a category that's for all of my 18 plus, right? I can drag and drop the channel into another category. And then I can go in and I can go to the edit channel and I can go to permissions and I can say sync this with the category permissions of that new category that it's in. And then it will overwrite all of these back to default and it'll sync all of these permissions with whatever we have set for that category. Okay. But basically, that's it. So now you have your role permissions all set for each role. You have the category permissions set for each category based on the roles specifically. And then you have the channels that override the category roles if needed for specific instances, all based on the roles permissions that you originally created. Okay. So how do we look and make sure that everything is how we set it up to be? So what you're going to do is you're going to come in here to the server settings again. We're going to go to roles and then click on the default permissions up here. And then if you click the three dots, so we're at the everyone role. If you click the three dots, you see you have the option to view server as role. So we're going to click on that. It's going to take you back to your server, but it's going to have this banner up at the top. And you can disable it to get out of it and go back to just normal Discord. You can go back to your roles settings, or you can select roles. So if you look here, we're viewing it as the everyone role. And if you look now, let me zoom out just quickly here. Whoops. We're viewing it as the everyone role. So everyone has the permission. So this is when you first join my server, right? You have the permission to see the rules. You have the permission to see the announcements. You see when I go live, when the patrons go live, and you can see all of our question and answers from our Tavern Talk streams, and of course, all the tutorials that we have, right? But you can't do anything about it. You can look, but you can look, but you can't touch. So you can see you do not have permission to send messages in this channel. So they don't have any of those permissions, right? They can't do anything. They can't write a message. They're just there. They can see them. And then once they click this button, then they're going to get my patrons role. So if we come up here to the select roles, here's all of your roles. And you can see they all have a little checkbox. So now if we go to patrons, because once they select the rules here as everyone or an ID check, they're going to get the patron role. So as soon as we click this, now you're going to see, look, all of the other channels have now shown up, right? So if we look here, though, the adult center, the little over 18 channel that I had there is not there, right? So the patrons, if you have the patron role, you don't have the 18 plus role yet. You can't see that. But let's watch what happens when I click on the add this role to view my server as. The adult humor section then there shows up, right? And so again, we can go back and click it. And now, so you're viewing this the server as it would show to anybody that has these roles, and you can select multiple roles. And this is how you're going to go through and check. So if you change the roles, say for your live now, or for your barflies, or whatever 18 plus, for the if you have a specific role where only Xbox people, you have a specific channel for Xbox people. You click these roles, it basically assigns you these roles, and then you can see what permissions you have. So as a patron, right now I can come in, I can actually chat as a patron, right? But then again, if I come back in here and we uncheck patron, um, uncheck all of these here, and we have that, and we go back to our we don't even have that channel, right? So it just kind of shows you that you can go through role by role and make sure that the channels and categories that you want to be visible are visible, the ones that are hidden, and if they're not, so for example, let me show you here. We've unchecked everything, right, except for the everyone role, because that's what we're viewing as. You can see that I have this storeroom. So this is like the old help section before we made uh the forum part. Maybe I don't want them to see this, but I can see that everyone can see this. So now I can come in here, and what I would do is I would go, I would disable this so that I'm an admin again. I would come down to my storeroom, and I would go into the edit category, go back to permissions, click on everyone, and look, they have permission to view the channel. So if I say, no, I don't want them to have permission to view the channel, right? We can say save changes. Okay, so here it is. Here's the storeroom still, but now let's go back to the settings. We're going to go to roles again, view as role for the everyone. And now you can see that it is no longer even showing up. Okay, and then again, we can select the roles, and we can come down here and say, oh, the patron. So here again is the storeroom. Now it's showing up for everybody else except for the everyone role, just like we've set it in the permissions. So again, or set your permissions for the roles, set your permissions for the categories, which can override the role rules. And then you set the permissions for the channel, which can override the category permissions. Okay. So it's that hierarchy again, but you want to set your role permissions first. They will then, of course, go through and be default based on that role. Then you give your category its permissions, and you can change the role permissions based on what you need for that entire category, and then specifically on the channel level. So those three places, they all have the same permissions. And you just want to adjust them, fine tune them so that your server runs the way that you want it to run. All right. So that's basically it. I know it's still a little bit confusing, but hopefully that cleared it up for you. And as a general rule, if you set your roles permissions correctly, and you take the time to actually go through every role one by one and set the permissions for that role, you shouldn't have much of an issue with your permissions on the server itself. And then you can just go through and set your category permissions, so that this role can't see it, this role can see it. Maybe you have, like I do with your admin section, where you don't want anybody to see it except for you or your moderators, and set those permissions. And then if you have a specific channel that needs different permissions for certain things, you can go into that one channel and set the permissions there. And don't forget to view server as role. It is very important. It is crucial for testing and to make sure that everything is how it should be. And then once you've gone through all that, you really don't need to touch your permissions ever again. And that's all there is to it. Slight changes may need to be made, of course, but overall, you should be good to go. So if you have any other questions on permissions, go ahead and drop a comment down below and we will get you sorted out. If you learned anything from this video today, give me a little thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, hi, how are you? I'm Bearded Ink. And if you like what you see here, click that little subscribe button to know when I post a new tutorial or when I go live, which I do every Saturday here on YouTube to answer your questions live. And you'll get all of those notifications. Plus, it'll make me feel good because I'm here for the numbers. Just kidding. I'm here for you. And I hope that this was helpful because I do know permissions are very, very confusing, right? But that's it for us today. So we will see you next time in another tutorial. And until then, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the show. We'll see you. Love, peace, and chicken grease.